Introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second session for the PUAN Environment and Energy Alumni Interest Group with U.S. Mission in Pakistan. We're all so happy that you're here, and we're grateful for your time. So thank you all so much for being here. We're respecting your time, and I acknowledge that you're taking time out of your very busy schedules. We hope you had a very good Eid holiday last week and that you and your families are doing well. As a reminder, my name is Elizabeth Smith. I am a public affairs officer here at U.S. Embassy in Islamabad, and one of my roles is helping to steer these alumni interest groups. Before we begin, I just wanted to share a little overview of our agenda for today. First, we will hear from a fellow officer here at the embassy who will discuss some of the environmental and energy issues they work on here on behalf of the U.S. Embassy. We will also have an opportunity to hear from all of you on some questions that he will open up to the group. Finally, today, we will also be hearing from a colleague working in PUAN who will explain some funding opportunities through our Alumni Small Grants programs. Today will be a great opportunity to learn and share with one another. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to use the Zoom chat. And if you need to be added to our WhatsApp group chat, please feel free to add your contact info in the chat, and we will add you so that we can continue with this conversation offline. So now I would like to pass it over and to introduce you all to my colleague. Mike Berenson arrived in Islamabad in May 2020 and is currently the Environment, Science, Technology, and Health Officer in the Economic Section. He previously served in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. Prior to joining the State Department, Mike worked in professional sports and operations management. He's also served in the military and served in various combat and non-combat roles throughout Europe, Africa, and Asia. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to you, Mike. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. As always, it's always a pleasure to be talking to our alumni and learning from you and hearing your perspective on things. And especially on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I know the week after a long holiday, it's always tough getting back into the swing of things, but here we are. We made it through the week, and I hope everyone had a safe and restful Eid holiday. And I'm really excited that the COVID numbers have gone down over the past few weeks, and hopefully it stays that way and we can continue down the right trajectory, and hopefully sometime sooner than later we can actually meet and do this in person. So Elizabeth, I think I've talked to a lot of you before, and Elizabeth, thank you for the introduction. Also on the line here, we have Anum Masood. Anum, she's our local staff in the economic section. Anum, do you want to just introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, hi everyone. I don't know if my video is on. Can you guys hear me fine?
We can hear you, we can't see you.
Okay, I'm trying to turn on my video, but there seemed to be a problem. I'll just get back to that. So I'm just gonna say hello everyone. I'm the Environment, Health, Science and Technology specialist working in the U.S. Embassy. I work with Mike on environment and health issues, and I'm really excited to be part of these groups. I was part of the discussion earlier, and so over to you, Mike.
All right, thank you, Anum, and I really hope you all get to know Anum over the coming months. And unfortunately, our American staff, like Elizabeth and I, our time is always shorter than we'd like, and we do 1 to 2 year tours here. But our local staff, they're really the ones who hold everything together as we transition in and out. And Anum has been with us for about six months now, and she's really going to be a key person moving forward in the long term when it comes to our environmental initiatives here. So I'm going to talk a bit, because I believe the last time we spoke was over a month ago, I believe in early early April, and since then, one of the big key events we had a month ago was President Biden's Leaders Summit on Climate. So I'll open up just to talk a bit about what we did and where we think we're going. And then I don't want to talk too long because I really want to hear from you all and the experts in the audience. So back to the summit. There were two kind of main purposes of this summit, and it was the largest virtual congregation of world leaders I think that we know of. And one of the main reasons why the president wanted to have this and why he selected a special envoy on climate, John Kerry, was to really signal to the world and show the world that after a period of absence over the prior 4 years, the United States is back, and we are heavily involved and want to be heavily invested in the fight against climate change. And as we've talked about before on these calls, this is a global issue that everyone needs to be involved in, and that everyone needs to contribute. And if you read a lot of what President Biden has said, what Special Envoy Kerry has said, climate change is one of our highest priorities, and it's really viewed as kind of an emergency, and it really is. And I know I don't need to really explain why it's an emergency to this audience, but I think a good metaphor or proverb is, to think about it and to think of how the United States is now viewing this is in terms of planting trees. And the best time to plant a tree, of course, was 20 years ago. However, the second best time to plant a tree is right now. And so in order to get on the right path and get, Secretary Kerry really made this clear during the climate summit, is that right now and through the next decade is a very critical time for the world and for all of us. So on the summit, that, signaling that we are back in the climate fight was a part of it, but also the other major part of it was to get commitments from the rest of the world, especially the world's major emitters and those economies like the United States that are contributing most of our greenhouse gas emissions and causing the problem. And if we're not all on board, if only one or two countries are not part of this fight against climate change, then we're not going to be successful. So that was the other big part of the summit, was to really encourage the world to enhance their ambitions and to do more in the climate change fight. So a few other key things that happened there. We announced that we're going to dramatically increase our commitments, the United States is, and that includes reducing our emissions by, I believe it was 48 to 52% of what they were in 2005. That's a pretty big and ambitious goal, and we feel we really have to go hard and go strong on this to make an impact. Another major announcement we had, which is especially important for countries that are not major emitters, like Pakistan, as you all know, only contributes 0.5% to global emissions, is our climate financing and funding. And the United States announced that we are going to really ramp up our climate funding and double the level it was during the high point of President Obama's tenure, and then also to triple adaptation funding. And I know, and if you watched the summit, you probably saw or heard about Special Assistant to the Prime Minister Malik Amin Aslam talking about Pakistan's vulnerability with our Secretary of Agriculture, Bill Sek, and as you all know, the situation for Pakistan is when it comes to climate resilience and vulnerability, there's a lot that needs to be done here to ensure that Pakistan can withstand the effects of climate change and all of those other things involved, such as water scarcity, reduced crop yields, the reduced storage of water in the reservoirs, natural disasters. So you know, when it comes to what the world needs to do, it's really reducing those emissions, reducing those greenhouse gases, but also strengthening the economies and the societies and the people in the countries that are really the primary victims of climate change. As unfortunately Pakistan is one of those countries, and I think it's the seriousness is recognized. You know, when you look at the Pakistan 7,000 glaciers that are melting, monsoon rains, I'm sure, you know, 2010 was 11 years ago, but you know, the floods of 2010 were as you all know, very devastating, and we want to ensure that countries are able to withstand catastrophes like that. So in addition to those things, the other kind of key points that President Biden and Secretary Kerry have really emphasized is that climate change, it is not, you know, in the previous decades since we have been talking about climate change and how to fight it, oftentimes there's an argument, you know, supporting green initiatives and fighting climate change is not compatible with business. It's expensive. It cuts into profits. However, we're finding that is just not true, and it is becoming more efficient and more profitable to adopt green technology and green solutions. And what the United States wants, you know, what we really want to promote is that it is in everyone's best interest to not just fight climate change, but also we can use this momentum we're trying to gather in the world to find green solutions and energy efficient solutions to help the world economies to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and also in the process make our economies more resilient to pandemics or natural disasters in the future, but also provide more jobs, better paying jobs, and kind of have this green economy and green marketplace that can benefit all of us. So that covers kind of, you know, the high points of the summit. Now, as we go into, you know, into COP26 this year, it's really going to be there's going to be a very big push on emissions reductions throughout the world. To open up the discussion, I would like to hear from anyone in the audience. When you look at the problem and you look at Pakistan not being a major emitter, however, being very vulnerable to climate change, you know, what are ways, and one of the things maybe someone here knows about, I've recently been learning about a debt for nature scheme where developed countries, they will relieve debt to developing countries who are meeting certain nature targets. For example, in afforestation and reforestation, if a country commits to X amount of trees planted, and they meet that target, not only does that, you get all the benefits of the trees and you are offsetting carbon, however, that country also gets relieved in debt, because some of the, as we look forward to the vulnerable and the countries that are causing the problems, there's a lot of discussion out there about how do we help these countries that are vulnerable, and how do we make it a more even playing field. So I will stop there and put it out to the group. What do you think are some ways that major emitters like the United States and vulnerable countries like Pakistan can cooperate or find ways to together work to help combat climate change? So I'll stop there.
Afia, you have your hand?
Hi. So thank you very much. And Mike, the question you asked about the depth for nature. So this is something new, and I think it is about to be rolled out on the World Environment Day. But it is very interesting, and it gives a good opportunity to be able to achieve true targets of carbon sequestration as well as paying off debts. The other thing, I think what you said, what can countries like US do for countries like Pakistan? So I think one thing is that the technology transfer, to be able to offset the emissions, because even if we are not a very high emitter, we are on the trajectory of increasing those emissions to be able to meet certain development targets, which obviously a country like Pakistan needs to. And because of our the situation that we are in, we are relying on fossil fuels, and we are taking out more fossil fuels. So the technology to limit the impacts of those fossil fuels, like if we can afford subcritical, then maybe going on to supercritical power plants so that the emissions are not. Also, the production of solar panels indigenously, because otherwise it becomes very difficult to to scale up the interventions of off-grid solar distribution to villages, to other towns, for which it's difficult for them to, even if the electricity grid is there, for them to be able to afford that electricity, whereas solar is getting cheaper and cheaper. So if the solar panels were locally produced, then that solution. So I think technology transfer, the knowledge transfer, those will be a very big help, other than specific project-based or infrastructure solutions that anybody can come up with. So I'll stop here.
Great, thank you so much. And over to Dr. Steve Khan. Well, we can hardly hear you.
Okay, is it better now?
It's louder, but it's breaking up a bit. Try again.
I'll just get rid of the headphones in that case. Okay, so thank you very much, Elizabeth and Mike, for the introductions. And Mike was actually talking about very important developments that have recently taken place. So I would like to just respond to some of the points which Mike was highlighting. And he talked about plantations, which are actually part of afforestation programs. So in Pakistan, in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we had a massive afforestation drive that started in 2014, and it lasted for 5 years. And 1 billion trees were planted. It was known as the Billion Tree Tsunami Project. Now that has been scaled up at the national level, and I'm sure that everybody is aware of the 10 billion tree tsunami program, which is being implemented throughout Pakistan. So yes, the plantation drives, they will certainly help because these forests, they are considered as carbon sinks, so they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they also provide many other ecosystem services. and it's also a part of an ecosystem-based adaptation plan as well. But we need to also think about the main problem, which is the decarbonization of economies around the world. And that is where the focus needs to be on. So at the moment, we can see that we are in a stage, in a process of transition from burning fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. We do have the technologies, and recently the Special Envoy, John Kerry, he mentioned that maybe we will be needing more technologies in the future that have not yet been invented to tackle the problem of climate change. But at the moment, the technologies that we have in terms of renewable energy, they need to be scaled up. And we need innovations, for example, in storage, because we have intermittency problems in terms of solar and wind energies. But we need innovations in terms of storage. And there has been progress in that, in terms of the different types of batteries and cells that are being developed. So the focus needs to be on phasing out very rapidly from fossil fuel combustion and then moving towards the renewable energy sources. We do have the technologies now, and I strongly share the same opinion which Dr. Michael Mann has, who is a senior US climate scientist and climatologist, who also maintains that we need to scale up our renewable energy technology. So we do have the technologies in hand, we need innovations in these technologies, and then we need to move forward. We need to stop using fossil fuels. So in order to reach the net zero emissions by the year 2050, we really need to think about decarbonizing our economies and moving from fossil fuels. So it needs a comprehensive plan, and afforestation programs all around the world, they may not be required or beneficial, even though they do play their important part, as I explained earlier. In terms of the technology transfer point, which Afia mentioned, I think it is important to look at the absorption capacity of developing countries. So even though we have the Green Climate Fund, according to the Paris Agreement, which funds developing countries in order to adapt and mitigate, but at the same time, we also need to look at our local conditions and resources, how we can absorb the technologies, and how these funds can be properly utilized for its maximum benefit. Otherwise, these funds, they will be just lying around. So it needs a comprehensive, proper plan in terms of investments. So one of the things that developing countries like Pakistan can do is provide further subsidies to renewable energies, such as the solar energies. And if those subsidies are provided through these investment plans, then the local communities, they will rely less on the national grid and more on renewable energies. So when I talk about the national grid, the last point which I would like to make is that I anticipate to see the future where we have the supply of electricity from renewable energies through the national grid. And that is going to make substantial differences in terms of our reductions in emissions, because we have the different sources of power generation, which also includes coal-fired power plants. And therefore, we need a transition to move to more renewable energy sources. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Over to Tayyab Gorsi and then to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. What I want to add is I am basically from an area which is a forest-enriched area in Kashmir. So now we do have, but the people around here, they normally use the forest wood for cooking purposes and for their home purposes. I believe that we do need some poverty alleviation projects here in order to put less pressure on the forest around here. And secondly, the major issue which in Pakistan, or specifically in areas which have these natural resources, is the wastewater. Normally, the wastewater coming out from the houses and from the homes and all around these urban settings is just getting into the rivers. So I just want to add that the people around here, they do need some type of wastewater treatment plants so that we can add less water to the wastewater to these water bodies, and similarly which goes to the waste management and all those things.
Thank you very much, Tayeb. Over to Sarah Asif and then Naveed.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I have this unique idea in my mind because we've seen that plastic is also a biggest contributor towards the climate change and environmental degradation. So what we can do is we can also reuse that plastic in kind of the construction industry, maybe replacing with the plastic bags being replaced for the road construction, or maybe producing building blocks. We have done a small experiment here over in our university's laboratory under my supervision, and we have tried to create some kind of small plastic bricks or paver tiles, which are incorporating as less amount of a cement as it would be. And it's also incorporating all kind of the biodegradable plastic, which is out there, such as PET plastic bottles.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. Over to Naveed Ahmad and then Zinat.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my thoughts with all of my colleagues. I'm personally a proponent of energy generation through energy conservation. I'm myself working in energy efficiency auditing and conservation in a lot of projects, and I strongly believe that Pakistan has a great potential to reduce their energy by conservation steps because of the kind of the inefficient technologies that are being used. So I would kind of agree with Ms. Ma'am Afia, who rightly proposed or suggested that technology transfer, latest technology transfer, that is more efficient as compared to the current technologies that are being used. So I think that technology transfer towards the more efficient technologies that can really help in energy conservation, in industry, in transport sector, in residential sector as well. Renewable energy, I think we have to think how much the green energy in itself is green, because right now we also have a lot of discussion of whether the fossil fuel energy can be really replaced by the renewable energy resources or not. And the kind of waste with the solar panels, once we are going to dispose them off, so where will they go? So we now have rightly these questions being asked about the renewable energy technologies, or whether like the energy storage or batteries, how much material we will need, and what about the embodied energy of the renewable energy technologies. Now we are raising these questions because it's now the cyclic process of disposing of the once the useful life has been completed, it has just started. So I guess it's good to have renewable energy resources, to have a more diverse sources of energy. But yes, I think we must look into this direction as well, that how much the green energy in itself is green. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Naveed. Over to Zinat Anjum.
So hi, hello, assalamu alaikum everyone. So there are a couple of points that I wanted to add since I've had a vast experience in this field. When we talk about renewable energy, the first question that as an individual we should all ask in our household, that are we really utilizing the green resources that are available? Are we really looking up for alternatives? Because if every household starts practicing the demoralization of use of plastics, then I think it would be really good and impactful in the long run. Other than that, if we talk about commercialization of solar energy, then again it needs to be done through proper infrastructure, and wind energy also needs to be commercialized using proper infrastructure. Like my fellow colleagues have already mentioned that we have the technology, but the innovation in technology just lacks proper infrastructure and channelization of all the agents that work together. For example, in supply chain, usual or logistics, we have optimized everything just to reduce the time and operational cost. Similarly, this logistics or the supply chain of the energy conversion and energy that goes to the household can be minimized, and the operation cost can be minimized as well. This will ultimately not be reflected on in the pockets of a common man, and this is one of the reasons that it's expensive now, because it's not afforded by everyone else. Last point that I would like to add is that a lot of people are not thinking about alternative fuels. So when I went to USA in 2019, my biggest problem was to understand about introduction of electric vehicle policies. Since I have been working in the automotive industry of Pakistan and know quite well about the resources, the vendors, the supply chain, and the principles that how the process really works. One of the major things that we lack is uh, the material shift. For example, we are still using low grade quality materials instead of just shifting to higher grade materials that produce less emissions, that are more environment friendly, but at the other hand, it's not cost effective. So if we are bringing something from China, from Thailand, from USA, from from India, from any other country, it's the technology that we have to adapt, not just the product. And the last point is that I hope that electric vehicles will be commercialized soon, as the government is really working on it, and I have good hopes for this. So I think my points would be good to understand, and I'll be ready to hear some of the feedback from you all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sina. We appreciate that. Next, we'll go to Wakas, and then we'll hear from Saqib, then Gol, then Mohammed. Over to you, Wakas. Wakas Idris, can you hear me?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. So I hope everyone is doing okay, and I'm sorry for joining in late. First of all, this is an interesting discussion. I heard bits and pieces of it because I joined in a little over 10-15 minutes ago. Just wanted to give in 2 or 3 cents of my thought, and I'll start with one of those guiding principles that I heard from Razak Daoud. I think he said it last year or a little over a year ago, and I'm just gonna quote him verbatim. I think we should put everything on hold for a year or 2 so that we can get our act together. And he was saying this specifically in the context of CPEC, and then in a global context when it comes to the energy and commerce sector of Pakistan. Perhaps we can stretch CPEC out over another 5 years or so. And then there were other discussions down the line where he had discussions and where the government had discussions regarding the Daimir Bhasha Dam. And I just want to bring it all together because one of the fallacies of the Pakistani system, and not even the Pakistani system, of a developing economy, is that we try to do so much in so little time with perhaps a little bit of thought behind it, that we overwhelm the system. So, for example, with the energy sector, I've been closely involved with the IGCEP process, the Integrated Energy Generation Plan that NTDC has been formulating, and the new one was supposed to be published in April, end of April, but right now it's still with the board of directors at NTDC. My 2 cents is renewable is fine. Any form of energy is fine. You can bring whatever you want into the system, but just wait for an integrated energy expansion generation plan so that you know what kind of capacity to what percentage, what locality makes sense for Pakistan. Right now, I am a hardcore generation guy, and I'm also working in transmission and distribution. I think I mentioned in the last meeting that we had that I recently concluded the USAID Sustainable Energy for Pakistan project, which was a 4-year project. And we have generation. What we don't have is a proper infrastructure for transmission and distribution. And because of, and I'll give you a couple of data points and then I'll leave it up to everyone because these will be my nuggets of thought for everyone and we can reconvene or we can discuss it further down the line. I'll be available to discuss it further. We keep signing these LNG contracts. We keep building up these wind farms, but then we know that we cannot pay off the debt. It accumulates into the circular debt. Then we have these wind which are being curtailed. So they go bankrupt. Then we are working on the generation plan, whereas NTDC needs to be working on the transmission expansion plan, which they frankly don't have the time to do because they're working on the generation plan. And there is this mismatch where who is supposed to do what? And when you talk about the IGCEP, the generation expansion plan, everyone says that since the government's target is 30% or now 60% by a certain period of time, 2030, that has to be hardwired into the system. You don't need to hardwire anything into the system. You need to get an honest, brutal, factual number churned out of the IGCEP. It can be 0% renewable. It can be 100% renewable. I mean, that's hypothetical, and that's never going to be possible. But that is what the need of the day is. Energy conservation is fine. That should be done irrespective of new generating plants. And that is, and one of the other things that discord between the different executing agencies, NECA as a separate entity is doing things, I mean, they're doing remarkable things, but they're functioning in silos. NTDC, CPPAG, all of these different agencies, the Ministry of Energy, Petroleum Division, the DG Gas, they need to be brought together under one umbrella. That is the call of the day. So my parting thought on all of this is, let's wait, let's work with NTDC. We need to see what a transparent IGCEP brings up. We need a transmission expansion plan. We need to look at our distribution network. We need to see the T&D losses. And I guess that is it. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Waqas. Appreciate that. We only have 3 more minutes remaining in this portion of our session. So the order will be Saqib and then Gul, Najaman, and Mohammed. If you could keep your comments to 1 minute each, please. Over to you, Saqib.
Elizabeth, thank you for giving me time. I would keep it short. I think one point which I want to discuss is that we don't have sole regulator for the greenhouse gas emissions in Pakistan. So establishing an authority or department which deals with the regulations of the carbon emissions or other greenhouse emissions is an important step towards tackling this issue. The other point some of my colleagues raised is that we have technologies. We don't have technologies here in Pakistan, but advanced countries have those technologies, including US. So it would be great if that technology transfer take place for the renewable energy generation and also for the energy storage. The third point I want to make is that we lack the component of research. There is no research center in Pakistan which is solely dedicated to greenhouse gas emissions and which is dedicated to the technologies of the energy storage, because we have some centers which are working on solar, on other renewable wind energy sources, but we don't have any research center which is dealing with the energy storage technologies. So I think that is the call of the day, that we establish the research centers and then provide them the grants and funding to do research on these technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Saqib. Over to Gul Najaman Jami. Or now over to Mohammed Faisal Sharif.
You can't hear me, I think.
Is that you, Gul Najaman? Go ahead.
I'll take a minute. I'm very sorry. So I'll be talking on a different tangent. I think so far we have been discussing various technical solutions. I mean, there are millions of issues and millions of solutions, so there is no limit to that. So how do we go about it? We also have other constraining factors. For example, government does not have enough money to go around and do all of those things. It's almost impossible. It's a huge country. It's very diversified. We have 80% industry and everything working in informally, not regulated. So how do you go about it? You go about it by easing the way people indulge in energy efficiency or environmental improvement. Private sector, civil society, various government agencies, you have to create incentives. You start with those things which are possible, which are available, but they are very costly. There is no tax rebate on them. There is no financing available. Access to capital is not available. I mean, there are millions of things one can do, but we should start with those things which are readily available, can be provided to people. Like, I can put a solar plant on my house and get away with this Islamabad electric supply company, but I cannot do it practically because it costs a huge amount of money. Somebody has to ensure capital is made available, the money is taken in installments. I mean, these are the type of solutions we should start with. And creating new institutions and others, I mean, it's not a very good experience in Pakistan. You do not get the type of professionals in those institutions at low salaries. That's not going to work. You'll only be hiring buildings and getting vehicles and then having issues about furniture and other issues. These are very practical ideas. I've worked for 40 years in all provinces in this area with all types of entities, government, civil society. So I'm saying, do first of all those things which facilitate every actor to play their role, the ones who are able to play, and educate people and provide access to products and services in easy to manage way. We make it very complex. We make everything very complex in Pakistan. So we specialize in that. So let's first start easing those things and make a list of things which need to be eased. New rocket sciences and all those things will come later automatically. There's no worry about that. I'll just end here.
Thank you. And for our last comment, we have Mohammed Faisal Sharif. Over to you. Mr. Sharif, are you here? I think you might have dropped the call. We can't hear you if you're trying to speak. You see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, we have no audio from you, Mr. Sharif. Possibly you could enter your thoughts in the chat. To wrap up this portion, and we do have one more segment to talk about alumni small grants, I'll pass it over to Mike to wrap up this wonderful discussion. Thanks.
As usual, I'm always really impressed with everyone's ideas and understanding of these really, really complex problems, and there's no way we could talk for hours and hours and hours about this. And I know it's a short session, but please don't feel free to reach out to myself and to Anam whenever you want, and we're happy to discuss these things more. And we'll, as we kind of figure out how the embassy is going to advance a lot of these important objectives for all of us. We want to be in touch with all of you to really get a better understanding of these challenges and what are some opportunities and ways to resolve them. So again, please reach out to us. We don't have to just wait to talk about this stuff in these calls. We can talk about this whenever you all are available. So with that, thanks again, and I'll turn it back over to Elizabeth.
Excellent, great, thank you so much. We have one more segment left. I'm going to pass it over to our colleague. We have Waqar Ahmad Khan. He is our Alumni Outreach Officer with US EFP, our PUAN office, and he's going to be discussing small grants program opportunities. Over to you, Waqar. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you everybody for joining us. This is a wonderful group and it was a great discussion. I'm sure most of you have already heard about the Alumni Small Grant. This is a funding opportunities for alumni with great ideas for the betterment of their communities. I have a quick presentation. I'm going to share my screen and then we go on from there. Okay.
We can see, looks good, thanks.
All right, good. So before going into the nitty-gritty, let me tell you some examples of environment-related small grants that we did in the past few years. Some of you have already heard of those. We did a K2 base camp cleanup in 2017. Everybody knows that K2 base camp Concordia. It's not for climbers anymore. It's like average people go there as an adventure trip. There are a lot of tour companies that charge you around 100,000 and take you there. So in summertime, it gets very, very busy. Even though it's very difficult, it takes you around 20 days to go and come back. So one of the grant project was to go and clean up those areas. And Shamshad Hussain, one of our very famous community college initiative program alumnus, he took 40 alumni, not just from Pakistan, but also from Tajikistan and China. USG alumni from Tajikistan, China, and Pakistan. They went all the way up to 44,000 meter height and then came back with over 1,700 kilos of waste, and then they disposed of as per the government rules, eco-friendly manners near the first human settlement once you're coming back. So this was so successful that we had to do it twice. Another one, Rafia Salim from Multan, an ELP alumna, she did a radio program for the farmers, for the local people about climate change, stories about waterborne diseases, animal protection, pollution, farming methods, and deforestation. This also happened about 3 or 4 years ago. Dr. Bushra Khan, a Fulbright alumna, she's from Peshawar. She works with the Pakistan Forest Institute in University of Peshawar. She worked with the about 100 farmers of Peshawar Valley districts, 5 districts, which is Peshawar, Charsadda, Naushera, Mardan, and Sawabi. And because her main concern and area of expertise is food security, and as per the climate change and the new environment changes, there is a big fear of countries like Pakistan will be losing out. So she had training sessions with these farmers. Very specifically, water is already very low, and now that farmers were not familiar with the latest technologies. So this was a project about how to use water more conservatively, and also climate change. Muzammil Panizai, Susi alumnus from Quetta. Near to Quetta, there is a small town called Ziarat, and Ziarat has world's oldest and the second largest juniper forest. Also, Ziarat gets very cold in winter time. Around 3 or 4 months, it stays below zero. Local people are using those forests, pile up the wood for burning. So Muzammil went to 10 union councils of the Ziarat district, worked with around 100 students from each school district, so around 1,000 in total. And there was a sessions, trainings, workshops on like why we should not be burning these forests and how to preserve, and because they are very, very good for our environment. Plus, they are very rare, oldest forest in the world. Another one from Quetta, Dr. Faisal Khan. Again, Quetta is facing a very severe shortage of water. If somebody from Quetta can correct me, I think you have to dig more than 1,500 feet underground to get the water. So his project was also about water and planting trees. So he worked with the student kids and he took them to the local lakes and planted some trees, and also had some sessions with experts for students of universities, colleges, and other areas of Quetta. Excuse me. The last one, it's still going on. It's Farhan Riaz from Lahore, and he's working on clean air initiatives. And this is still going on. And Lahore and Faisalabad is like one of the very bad air in South Asia, maybe in all of the Asia. So this was very needed. Once his project is complete, he will be working on a documentary of the psychological effects, also a website, a smartphone app. He's also working with the local governments and installing some sensors within Lahore. Also will be developing some low-cost air purifier, and he will also be involving a lot of students. So these are some of the backgrounds. Very small example of things we have done through Small Grant. And now you ask me, how do we do this? So basically, these are the primary goals of small grants, where you invest in people, increase mutual understanding, and increase community engagement. Currently, there are two types of streams that are available. Special themes, each cycle, each grant cycle, US Mission announces some special themes. And then if your idea doesn't fit into those special themes, you can still apply. Usually we have bigger amounts for special themes, like maybe up to ₹1,000,000, and a smaller amount for open themes, which is usually about $500,000. But for this upcoming cycle, which starts on the 1st of June, we will only be accepting virtual based ideas. So only ideas which can be delivered like just like this, like Zoom or other electronic media, because still going through the COVID SOPs. So in-person activities are not allowed. So this is why the budget is slightly less than the usual ones. So special themes for the next cycles are, there are three main themes. The first one is terrorism and countering terrorism and reducing violent extremism. And then there are about 7 sub-themes. All of this information, you don't have to write it down right now. This is all available on PUAN blog and Facebook page. So 7 themes. If you're wondering what can I do under countering terrorism and reducing violent extremism, so these are again, these are not the only one. If you can think of some other topic that fits into this main theme, you're still welcome to apply. The second one is advancing regional stability, integration, and security in South Asia. But for this one, you must have alumni from India or Afghanistan as partners. Again, we're talking about climate change and air quality challenges, digital business beyond borders, peace building strategies for stability and development. And the last one is enabling economic growth, development, and inclusive Pakistan. So these are the 3 main themes with sub-themes. And again, if you have another idea which is within the main theme but has a different sub-theme, you are perfectly fine to apply it. And if you don't like any of these themes and you have another idea which you think, which you are very passionate about, you can still send us your idea. Main thing is the basic 3 principles, the goals that I told you in the beginning. It has to meet one of those 3, all 3, 1 or 2. You are welcome. There is one more way to apply, which is not part of my presentation, and that is Mission Initiated Alumni Small Grant. This is for the idea that is, if you feel that is much bigger, requires more time, more effort, more funds, so you can contact any of PUAN members, your alumni coordinator, or me through our emails, phones, and we can guide you how to go through. Mission initiated alumni small grants don't get advertised because this is usually between the mission and the alumni. So if you have some idea that you really feel passionate about and think it's the need of the time, but requires more time and should not be within these timelines, we are open to listening to and discussing those ideas as well. So what is a valid proposal? It has to be innovative and unique. It has to be your idea, independently originated and developed by you, consistent with your exchange program or your professional experience with your education. Meet a specific community need. So this is very important. It has to satisfy some need of your community. And then the maximum duration is 4 months. So we'll talk about this. This is the upcoming calendar. We will start accepting application June 1. Everything is online. You log into your PUAN account. You click on ASG and then you start filling. So that system will be open on June 1 and stays open for June 30th. So for 1 month, we'll be accepting application. Then we have a very elaborate, very transparent, very long review process, which can take, it's a 3 different levels. But first it goes to your consulate and then embassy, USCP. So it takes around 2 months, give and take. Then by September, we'll be able to shortlist, finalize, approve, minor changes. So September is for those final negotiation. And by first week of September, we should be able to give the first installment to the approved ones. Like I said in the previous slide, you have around 4 months to execute your project. And by 4 months, mean that includes your reporting and closing. So if you are thinking of applying, your execution time should be somewhere between October and early mid-Jan. Process is very simple. Go to PUAN.pk. You get more information from Park Alumni Network or .grant. This gives you all the examples, and all the examples that I mentioned earlier, you can read about all those previous grants just to get some idea of what kind of things people have done. Online system asks you to fill in the form and then attach a short video of yourself. Again, we don't need any specialized high quality professional recorded video. Just your Android, iPhone is fine. Tell us in about 20 seconds about yourself, 20 seconds about your project, and 20 seconds about what you are trying to achieve with this project. So this all will be uploaded on this system once you log in. And then every 3 to 4 months we start this project. Decision is within 2 months, and then final installments, once you sign the agreement, within 2 weeks you will get the first installment, which is usually 80%. So this is basically it, my small grant presentation. So just to recap, June we'll be accepting the application. This time only virtual ideas, no physical, no in contact, nothing in person. Maximum budget for this time, open theme or special theme, rupees 200,000 at max. Funds will be dispersed in October, so your activities should be planned between October and January. So this is it. If you still have any question, feel free to send me an email. Get more information at the blog page, pakusalumni.turk.org. Email is asg@uscfpakistan.org. So that's it. And if you have any question, again, ask me now or send me an email, whichever way you feel comfortable.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much, Bakar. That was a great presentation, and we really do hope that part of the purpose of this program can be to, connect with you guys more through Alumni Small Grants. It's a fantastic opportunity. The funding is out there, so definitely send us your proposals and apply. That would be excellent. So thank you. Before we wrap up for the day, I also just wanted to promote our next event that we'll be holding. It's pretty soon. It's in a couple Saturdays from now. The next event will be an exclusive film screening on Saturday, June 5th. Only a very select few contacts of the embassy have been invited, and all of you in this interest group are part of that guest list. And we hope that you can join us. What will it be? It's a conversation with Shehzad Hamid. He is an internationally recognized and awarded filmmaker. The documentary is called Pakistan's Himalayan Meltdown. And the event will be watching the short documentary together and then a Q&A session with the filmmaker himself. So that, once again, that'll be on Saturday, June 5th, and that is from 2:30 to 4:30 our time. Please check your forthcoming emails for the link invitation to that, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you then. We want to thank all of you so much for your time today in our second session for this Environment and Energy Alumni Interest Group. We hope you find this time productive and useful, and we look forward to continuing to receive your feedback. Thank you all so much. Juma Mubarak, and we hope you have a great weekend. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for the wonderful moderation. Thank you so much, Bakar Saab. Thank you so much, Bright. So it went really well, and now we are really looking forward to receiving some of the very good proposals, because all the discussion points which we discussed over here and all the ideas which we were sharing with each other a while ago, I guess the best possible way to kind of practically implement them via platform of Embassy and PUAN is via these Alumni Small Grants. So we will be looking forward to your proposals. And before we say goodbye, I would request all of you, or at least those who would be interested in a group photo, to please turn on your videos for like 10 seconds or so that we can have a quick photo for social media. Okay, let's wait for others who are still turning their cameras on. Okay, I can still see 4 non-video participants, 3 non-video participants.
Well, Stanila, I can't turn on the camera. I can leave, so
Sure,
you
sure,
guys
you
can
can,
have.
you can,
Thank you.
Saqib. Perfect. So I can still see one member with like who hasn't turned on the camera, and I guess that's voluntary. So on the count of three, let's take a photo. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Let me take another one just in case the previous one doesn't come out that good. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yay. Thank you so very much. So with this, we are signing out from here. I am going to pause the record.